Hi there, everybody. We're in Midland, Texas. I got an interesting story here tonight for you, and I posted this on my Facebook earlier. A couple of years ago, was on Facebook in a conversation. It was a friend of a friend that wrote something that I'm gonna show you here. I'm gonna show you this in a minute. It was a local mason here in Midland named Aaron Pachlhofer, and he asked me if I knew the names of the four people that had been murdered, died in my house. Okay, and uh, I didn't, of course, and but I had been told by a former neighbor that lived here in Maryland, Delugy, that Mike Lahan, the previous owner of this home, had died here, and she told me that somebody else died here before him. Okay, and I've wondered if that wasn't a still missing man from Odessa named Rini Escobar Sanchez that went missing 3 months before Mike Lahan died, and so that'd be two people if that was it, and then there's the young girl I was talking about being murdered at the 2010 oil show party, which is believed to be in the underground facilities. That looks like it's in my backyard. Multiple people have said was here, and so maybe he's counting that one. But then there's, that still leave another one I wouldn't even know, and I think it's clear that they plan to make me the fifth person. Okay, and so I've compiled, I don't. I've got videos on Rini Escobar Sanchez, and I can put links there for you. But I'm just going to quickly run over that story. I'm going to quickly run over the Mike Lahan story, and basically the deal. And I'll tell you here on Rini, like as I said, he went missing in July 2008. I was still in Hobbs at the time, and I didn't even think nothing about it until after I was shot, and and I remembered smelling a death smell and finding some buried clothes that were on the west side of my lawn, and I contacted law enforcement in 2012 after I had been shot, and I didn't earlier because I didn't know where Mike Lahan had died at. But then after all these crimes and everything happened to me, I thought it was a great place to look on the west side of my lawn. And right after that, they arrested a guy. And keep in mind, this is like 4 or 5 years after Rini disappeared. They arrested a guy for his murder. And the guy went to prison, and they never found his body. Actually, he took them out to Moss Road over in Odessa. They did a big search. All these people didn't find anything. Okay. And it was very convenient because, I suggested they come here, look, dig. And guess what happens when you start digging around here? Then you uncover other stuff, right? And so, and then all of a sudden, here's this guy they arrest. I've got a picture of him in the news where he's got this smiling face like this. I did it. Arrest me for murder. It looks like he won the lottery. Literally looks like that in the picture. And I wondered if somebody says, "Hey, I tell you what, you confess this, well, and we'll take care of you and pay you whatever." I don't know that, but that's what it looks like. And so that was that story. Mike Lahan, he's the previous homeowner. Dies right before I get here. And then, of course, after I'm shot, I'm doing an investigation. There's 2 death notices for him. Odessa American posted he died in Fort Worth, and then they come back 4 days later and post a death notice, change the location to said he died in Midland. That confirmed the same thing that my neighbor told me. Marilyn Delugy lived right across the street. She told me twice Mike lived here, and one time she says, "I should know, right?" She had me convinced. And then there was even more evidence, like I got a picture of the back door when I first looked at this home with my realtor, and it was fine. 28 days later, when I was coming here with the home inspector and buying this home, when I got here, me and the home inspector found a hole in the door where somebody had kicked in the door that month. And I had a picture of it on the first, and Mike was still alive at that time, and the door was fine. So that was absolute proof that somebody brute force entered this house in the month of October 2008, and that's the month that Mike Lahan died in 2 different towns. Okay, and then so you add all in that, all the crimes against me, the underground facilities, telling all that. Obviously, Mike Lahan was murdered here, taken to Fort Worth. Okay, and then we have the in 2010. That was all 2008. 2010, then a woman that worked in my building at Odessa tells me about a young girl that's murdered, and and she had been ordered to work at these oil show parties. She's the one, said that this girl refused to prostitute, and they killed her. I tried to get her to go report this murder, and she was afraid and told me high-level police were there. Okay, and then next thing I know, I get a call from a police officer threatening to arrest me if I talk to her again, and I'm trying to get her to go report a murder she told me about the police were involved in. Okay, so I haven't talked to her since. That's the murder of the young girl, and I've made videos on that on the 2010 oil show party murder. And at the time, we were driving from Claytester to my home to stay here maybe, for a little bit. And then she'd leave and go to the party that was them evening during that week of the oil show. And we were talking on the phone as she's driving, and it was only 5 minutes. So I knew that the underground facility was within 5 minutes of my house. I believe the oil show parties were near my home. And so I believe it was in the underground facility that, the woman on the recorded phone call said there's 4 3-bedroom homes, 25 foot deep. There's Rodney Denman Rogers said underground facilities half a block away. Ricky Ronaldo said, yeah, I used to live in your house. There's tunnels in your house. All these multiple people, that's just a few examples, are saying underground tunnels here. And so I believe that's what was happening. And, this story is not in depth about that, but it looks like they were parking in the Home Depot parking lot. I'm assuming going underground somewhere under Home Depot, coming over here to the underground facility, whatever. And then this little girl didn't want to prostitute, so they killed her, and so then I find out, and that could be a motive for murder, why they wanted to kill me, because I found out about that. And then the crimes start against me. My first call for burglary, November 2010. It wasn't somebody in the attic, one tunnel's done that. I just noticed somebody's in my house, And so when I talk about reporting people in the attic, they're not always in the attic, because when you're gone, they have your entire home. Okay, and I was gone most of the time, and I think they were probably using it for a flop house that's connected to human trafficking, sex trafficking. The ex-wife told me there was micro cameras here, trap doors here, and so they're probably even filming people, blackmailing them. That's part of all that racketeering. This is organized crime, is what it is, and they're rigging private homes, and it was rigged. You can believe rigged before I even got here. I'm really just the next guy after the last guy, because I believe they killed the last guy. It's a miracle I survived. Now I reported. 2 months later, in January of 2011, I made my second call for a burglary. Remember, this is a felony, okay? And I'm a 27-year company man. Come down here, moved down here with hope and excitement, spent my life savings on home, volunteered to lead the United Way drive for my company. I felt like I was a pretty good citizen here, giving back to my community. And when I said somebody's an addict, I was serious. But at that time, I didn't have proof of all these other homeowners reporting the same thing. And that gives them the opportunity, oh, he's crazy, And the people who are doing that are actually really trying to cover up multiple murders, is what they're doing. Anybody that says that now, after all this evidence is up there, should be investigated for what their part is in these multiple capital crimes, because that's what this is. This is a murder ring, crime ring, very powerful crime ring. And so now I've got just people documented all over Midland, Odessa, Texas, and across other states reporting people in the attic. And a lot of these are recorded with my phone right off the police scanner. Some homeowner calling the police, reporting people in the attic right here in my local area. And another story, I went to the Midland records request, and I wanted to ask for a list of all homeowners reported some of the attic, and they come back and says there is none, not zero, none. I'm going, bull crap, I got a half a dozen phone calls. I got a half a dozen videos right on my police scanner. I called myself and reported people in that. I got the police report, They're saying there's zero. Talk about a cover-up, And once again, it's not just the cover-up of burglaries and theft and human trafficking. This is capital murders, multiple murders, and is what they're covering up. Another police report of the same year, 2011, I married a woman. She's the first person that says, you think they're coming from the ground, and I'm like, nah, and the more I thought about it, that's exactly what's going on. She's the one who gave me the idea, and And yeah, she's right. She knew that, of course. And but then come December of 2011, she calls the police. I got a police report on that. They put me in the back of a police car. Police come to my house, put me in the back of this police car that has a bag of marijuana laying in the seat, and then tell me, we better not be called over here again for this stuff. And you know what they're called over again? It's me calling them for felonies, for burglaries being committed against me. This home is rigged for crime. They're committing felonies against me. And they, well, they're not taking TVs. Well, they're not. No, they're stealing electricity, heating, cooling. It's called theft of services felony. They're stealing from me. They're sticking their hand in my pocket and they're pulling out money is what they're doing. These are thieves, and if you try to stop them, they kill you. And that's really what's going on. So that was that story there. And then we have the police cars arriving. I have a timestamp picture of that. And basically, it took 6 years to figure out who they are. Now we know who they are. After I offered a reward and Empire Private Investigations named them. But the first one to arrive at my house was Martin County Sheriff John Woodward. This is Midland County. He's not even from here. He lives, he's over from Stanton or, another town 30 miles away or whatever, And so nobody's ever explained how come the sheriff from a whole different county was the first one in my house after I crawled out from surviving a murder attempt, And by the way, he's now a convicted felon. That's been on the news recently. He was followed by Mike Naylor, late Sheriff Deputy Mike Naylor, Midland. And Mike Naylor died in the line of duty on October 14th, 2000, or October 9th, 2014. Okay. The press never told you he was a secret police because he was secret for 6 years. He was the second person at my house following a sheriff from a different county after I survived a murder attempt. Okay, this is a guy who died in line of duty. There's some people even asking if he wasn't killed because he was going to testify against the other secret police. Because that's crossing the blue line. If you're a good police officer and you report other police officers involved in capital murders and breaking in homes and thousands of burglaries, then they might kill you. That's an idea. And so they were time stamped here 11:01. The cameras are disabled in front of my house 11:22. Okay, nobody else was seen arriving. Okay, this year I get the police report from that night from January 2012, 2012. And it had been withheld from me. I requested reports in April 2012, and it didn't show up. That's what caused the secret police. I didn't have a report showing any police were here. So they could have been criminals dressed like police because we didn't know they were police. And and I used to go around calling the first known secret police since Nazi Germany. I don't know how many times I'd said that. And I mean they're criminals. They're secret police because I had no police report. I had pictures of police. Okay, and I also knew they tried to disable the inside camera. They did disable the outside camera. And so, but this year, just a few months ago, I find out there is a police report and I get a copy of it. And so I'm going through the timestamps on it. The names from the private investigator don't match the names on the police report. Okay. Naylor, that's no longer alive, the Midland Sheriff County Deputy, his name is not on the police report. And he's dead, and he was the second one to show up. Let that sink in. And then Chad Simpson, that was inside my house wearing a Midland K9 police jacket, okay, and he died 2 months after Naylor supposedly killed his wife and committed suicide. Once again, maybe, did somebody kill him, one of the secret police kill him because he's going to testify? I don't know, but what we do know is 2 secret police are dead. Neither one of their names are on the police report, okay, and that's fact. Somebody ought to be explaining that. That'll be national news, your news ought to be covering that. They're hiding all this from you. That's what's happening, and why? Multiple murders, because it's very profitable to break into people's houses and murder them and steal their property, because that's my life savings. I worked my whole life to pay for my home. They were going to kill me, take my insurance, and there's insurance fraud. It's crime after crime. It's racketeering. That's what it is. They should be charged on the RICO Act. Okay, but the other thing on the police report is 5 police officers, Davis, Dickey, Chatwell, Angel, and Hale, are listed as being at or inside my home, and they're not seen arriving on the cameras, okay? Because it's time-stamped, right? They're calling out dispatch, and dispatch is time-stamping them. They're at my home. They're not seen arriving, okay? Well, how do you explain that? You explain that because they were under my house. That's what it is. And somebody under my house shot me. Remember Ricky Ronaldo said, I used to live in your house. Oh, yeah, yeah. Me and my brother used to go in the tunnels under it. Oh, yeah, right. And then the multiple people saying in an underground facility, it looks like one's in the backyard where they were having international oil show parties. Okay. Police were here, 5 of them, documented. Nobody's ever explained that either. Maybe them 5 ought to be asked about Naylor's death and Simpson's death, besides the murder attempt on my life, and find out why they're here. This is just unprecedented lawlessness is what's going on here. Well, then, it's one thing for me to say, this is a murder attempt. But, like I told the FBI agent just recently, actually, I talked to Homeland this year, and Homeland advised me to talk to FBI again. Oh, they're not, there's a whole new group, they're not dirty anymore. Whatever. Okay. I get down there, and I'm sitting there, and I finally tell this FBI agent, he won't even give me his name. I tell you what, call me Duty Agent. Well, what's your name? Duty Agent. Okay, so I talked to the FBI Duty Agent, Mr. Duty, and so I provide them this large packet of evidence that solve a half a dozen murders, literally, and stop this crime ring. And I finally, in the middle of that, I said, can we agree that if I wasn't shot with my gun, then I was shot with another gun? And if I was shot with another gun, somebody come to my home and shot me, and he, boy, got mad, He's sitting there mad, he's angry when I said that, And I started naming off there the size of pellets are 2.5 sizes different than, that was in my gun that's in my foot. The surgeon said he removed a large amount of plastic, which wouldn't have been found if I shot my gun. Lisa Rogers said I shot with a .45 handgun. Ricky Ronaldo said there was tunnels here. I just reported, and I'm going on, I'm naming triple proof that x-rays were faked, and I'm naming off this evidence, And so I'm going to go over the evidence showing just that right there, and that leaves no doubt. Can we agree that if I wasn't shot with my gun, somebody come to my home and shot me? And I can't tell you how many people you need to dig. I hadn't seen no case of tunnel, and I don't know how many times I said this is not a capital attempted tunnel case. This is a capital attempted murder case, and proof of a tunnel doesn't prove attempted murder. Proof that I wasn't shot with my gun does, though. Proof that I wasn't shot with my gun proves a capital attempted murder, and that's already proven. Right now, we're just obstruction of justice and lawlessness is what's going on. While I live under a death threat and have crimes committed against me and people trying to talk me into moving away from my house. And so then I'm going to go over some of the other. Rhonda Denman Rogers said that half block of the underground facility is half block away. Ricky already mentioned that. The woman said, go to Google Maps, look up your address. I show this on several videos. And what I see is on the block map is a large facility in my backyard. You flip it over to the satellite map, and you don't see it. Okay, and you go outside and you don't see it. But on the block map is a large facility. It's rectangular in my backyard. And it looks like a building. Okay, it looks like a building in my backyard, but it's not there. Okay, and I have a woman recorded on the phone telling me there's 4 3-bedroom homes, 25 foot deep, each costing, and they were having benefit parties there. I think that's one of them. I think that's probably where that young girl got murdered at. Anyway, I'm gonna show you that picture too. And then where it looks like tunnels were cut behind Home Depot. Another home on Westmont Court looks like that maybe it has underground access to. And then finally, I'm going to wrap this up, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to, like I've been doing lately, flip over and show you the evidence after all this talk here is why. Where's the why? Well, the why, that's $1 million question, the motive, right? And so one thing I think one of the big deals is the day that I'm shot, I trapped a burglar in my guest bathroom. Now, keep in mind, I've been reporting felonies being committed against me for 14 months, I'd called the police, the Texas Rangers, the FBI, and even the DEA reported a suspected tunnel 2 weeks earlier, right? I come home from the grocery store, recognize somebody had been in my home again. Not my attic, not I don't know that, in my home, okay? And, my life is threatened. And now we know that they're armed and dangerous killers, okay? I mean, I think we can all agree to that, right? I wasn't shot with my gun, I shot with somebody else's gun. That means they drove from their home to my home with their guns and shot me. And could they have just left and not shot me? Sure, I didn't know they were there. They shot me by surprise. These are cold-blooded killers, okay? And so I want to show you the evidence on that. I found pry marks on top of the the bathroom door where I unknowingly trapped a burglar in the bathroom on the day that I'm shot. And so at that point, then they didn't plan on getting trapped because the tower had the door shut. And they could have called and said, I'm a burglar, I'm committing a felony, come arrest me before I get shot and send me to prison for a long prison sentence because I've broken into this man's home 5,000 times, and me and my friends, and we have underground access, and we're rigging homes all over the place, and we're stealing and we're killing, and come arrest me, or they could kill me. Right? And you know what they did? They decided to kill me. And once again, I didn't even know this burglar was there. And it looks like that might be an excuse for these criminals that are rigging homes and stealing and killing. That, this is Buddy's fault. Now he locked somebody in the bathroom, and we had to shoot him. We had to sneak into his home and shoot him by surprise. But no, you go to prison for life for that. That's a home invasion. And that's what made it a capital crime. Because if attempted murder during the commission of a felony, and the felony is the home invasion, the burglary, that would have been important, okay, and it makes it capital. And what it is, it's like getting caught at the bank. You're robbing the bank, you get caught inside the bank. Well, instead of turning yourself in and going to jail, you decide to start killing people on the way out, right? Right? You're trying to shoot your way out, and that makes it capital. Because if you wouldn't have done that, you'd been all right. They arrested you for bank robbery, but you wanted to kill your way out of it because you got busted committing a felony. The felony was the burglary, and this home been right. I don't care if it has been rigged with $1 million underground facility. That's mine. It's on my property. When I bought this property, you come on my property, you're breaking the law, and you need to go to jail. Okay. And so I'm going to show you that. There was even a few minutes after I shot, one of the secret police, that was secret for 6 years, name was April Chandler, MPD officer April Chandler. She's at the hospital, and she's filling out an emergency detention form. And she starts to write, Mr. Webb shot himself. And then she scribbles that out. And I'm going to show you the document where she scribbled that out. And obviously she knew that was a lie. That was a direct lie because I didn't shoot myself. And she's changed her wording. And I'm going to show you that. Mr. Webb showed paranoia to the extent that he caused himself to suffer a gunshot wound. And, and here's how I read that was, Mr. Webb recognized he was under a felony home invasion, unknowingly trapped a burglar in his guest's bathroom while this felony burglary was being committed against him. So we had to break into his home and shoot him. You see what she's saying? Is that the mentality of a criminal that breaks into homes and kills people right there? Mr. Webb showed paranoia to the extent that he caused himself to suffer a gunshot wound. Trying to blame me. I'm home minding my own business. I'm reporting crimes that they're supposed to stop. Remember, 5 police officers are listed as being at my house, and they're not seen coming in. They're under my house. Now I've got a feeling maybe one of them 5 was the would-be shooter, the killer. Okay, and all the rest of them are the accessories to capital attempted murder. And we might find that there's a link back to the money. And I think probably bribes or whatever, $1 million underground facility. So whoever put that in might be bribing them or whatever. And then there's some other possible motives. Suspected that a landman attorney might have got killed in my hallway 2 weeks prior, Matt Hyman. That's another story, and I think it's important. And I'm going to show you evidence on that. And so a part of the motive there could be an revenge, and then the other things is they're not going to give up. That's the thing. They're not going to go break into somebody else's home and murder them. Well, maybe they are, but they're not going to stop breaking into my home. They want to terrorize me from my home, and that's against the law. It's America. I spent my whole life saving, worked my whole life to buy my home. This is my home. I want them to leave me alone, right? But they are not giving up, right? And so possibly Matt Hyman and some of his friends were sneaking to my house to kill me 2 weeks earlier. I call it the first murder attempt. And then I quickly put electricity on my doorknob, recognizing I was under a home invasion, and possibly he grabbed the doorknob, electrocuted it, and he died in my hallway. And the thing is his friends couldn't say, we were breaking in this private home trying to kill this man, and he built a safe for him, put electricity on the door, one of our guys got killed. Because then they're going to be charged with his death. okay? Because once again, they're in the commission of a felony, in a burglary, of a home invasion. This is my home. They're breaking into my home, okay? And so they can't say that. So, it's real possible that they have to come up with some cover excuse. You got to take him somewhere. So here's this young man dies of surprise heart failure. I'm going to show you that story in a minute. And then another obvious motive is the money, right? There's a total of $1.5 million I calculated if my murder was ruled an accident by Rosa Rodriguez. She's the one that closed my case. We found out 2 years later that she was lifelong friends with the ex-wife that I just filed divorce on 5 days earlier from a 3-month marriage, and that was going to get nothing. But if her friend ruled my murder an accident, she was going to get a paid for and very special rigged home, right, with $1 million underground facility, plus about $650,000 in cash and assets and stocks. Okay, and so. So I got that. So I'm going to flip this and show you the evidence here. And once again, it's to the point of the absurdity on evidence that you really wonder how many people they've murdered. We're talking about multiple murders. That arrest should have been made a long time ago. These crimes should have been stopped long time ago. Let me flip it over. And this is the evidence portion of this video, and as I told other people, it's one thing for me to say, somebody, come to my home and shot me, but without evidence, then that doesn't really mean a lot. And thankfully, it's not my word against their word. It's not my assessment. There's irrefutable, undeniable evidence. I wasn't shot with my gun. Somebody might come to my home and shot me. That's a fact. And then we have all the other, evidence backing it up, witness testimony, underground facilities, all that, and so that I'll be clear. This here is where I'm going to start with, and in this video of about this local Mason, Aaron Pachlhofer, and I took a screenshot. I told that story a while ago, but he asked me, but if I can ask, there were 4 people who were murdered, died in your house, what are their names? And notice he didn't ask me if there was 3 or if there was 6 or whatever. And he made a syntax there and put a question mark at the end of there. And when he said, but can I ask you, there were 4 people murdered in your house. And I can't tell you how many suspects have questioned that, or not questioned it, but basically going, oh, he wasn't saying there was 4, he was asking. See, there's a question mark. And that's ridiculous, because he didn't say there was 3, he didn't say 6, he didn't say 8, he didn't say 10, he said 4, and so, he made a statement, he just made a grammar error on that syntax error, and then what are their names? Okay, well, I didn't know the names of them, and I told you that a while ago. But the other thing on here, this was Lisa's friend. She was my Facebook friend back then, not anymore, but telling him, I know you're a Mason, but he has always wanted to communicate with the Masonry group. I don't know where she got that from, but for whatever reason, she made a point to let me know that he was a Mason here in Midland, and so I can't tell you how many people have suggested that Masons were involved in the crimes and all that, but I have no evidence saying that. I did notice that right around the corner that there was a home, this is very close to me on Fairbanks, 4503, that it's owned by the Texas Scottish Rite Hospital, and so, that's kind of interesting. And I'll show you on a map, here's the Home Depot and there's my home. And you can even see on this block map, the underground facility in the backyard that's not there. Okay, there's my home. And then it's telling you how to go by the street, but you don't have to go by the street. You know what I mean? All you have to do is go down the alley and then you're right here, So this home is right here. It's where it is, And so that's the one owned by the Masons, And so, but whether that home and Texas Scottish Rite Masons have anything to do with the crimes there, I don't know. All I know is he was a Mason, and he knows, and law enforcement should be asking him, how do you know that? Obviously, the exact number, so their names, and if you know their names, about the underground facility, who murdered them, all this, right? That's just logical. I ain't trying to do police work for you, but, it's pretty common sense stuff right there, And so then I'm going to just run over the history. Before I even moved here, July 12, 2008, Rini Escobar Sanchez goes missing from Odessa, Texas. Okay, and y'all can look this up, Google it, come back. I'm going to show you a link on my YouTube more about that story. But this was 3 months before Michael Ahan died. This man went missing. Okay. and then it was after I was shot that there was a news story on News West 9, and so now I remembered a death smell, some cut up clothes, and on the west side of my lawn. I contacted Crime Stoppers, and suggested maybe somebody look over here. Maybe he's buried on the west side of my lawn, and they, and I didn't get nothing out of them. They never came and looked. And then I sent it over to John, a reporter with the Odessa American, and telling them this incredible story. Here's this missing man they're looking for, Rini Escobar Sanchez. And and that's what I was saying earlier, is that right after. I suggested somebody come here and look. This guy confesses, Jesus. And look at that smile on his face. It looks like he just won the lottery. And I bet he did. I'm guessing that he was bribed, And, here, I'll tell you what, you just go ahead and confess to this, and we'll make it worth your while, and that way we don't risk exposing an underground facility and the multiple murders that are connected with it. And then 3 months after Rini dies, then Mike Lawhon, the previous owner, dies. When I first looked at the home, he was still alive, on October 1st, and then he dies on October 12th, in Fort Worth. See, and this is the Odessa American, posted on it's showing the date it posted, October 14th, that Mike Lawhon died in Fort Worth. But then 4 days later, on October 18th, they post a second death notice and change the location of the death to say he died at his residence. Now, that wasn't an accident. That didn't automatically happen. That was on purpose. There was a reason. And that was the same thing that my neighbor, Marilyn DeLugia, told me. And that Mike had died in his house, and somebody else had died here before him. And that's why I wonder if it wasn't Rini Escobar Sanchez. I've more in detail videos on that. And then also interesting, the 2008 Permian Basin International Oil Show, this is the schedule for that year, started on October 20th. Mike Lawhon died on October 12th. Okay, so a week before Mike Lawhon dies, then the oil show starts, and that seems very coincidental, but with the suspicion that the underground facility in the backyard is being used for oil shows and prostitution parties. And so I wanted y'all to see that, so then. And that was all 2008, okay? Well, let's get into the 2010 oil show, okay? This is the 2010 Permian Basin International Oil Show. That's a story I've told many times. This is the week. It started on the 25th, 26th, 27th, and 28th. And that was the week that my friend was ordered to work at that show, told me that the young girl was murdered there. I knew the party was within 5 minutes of the house. And, I straightened by the police officer, all that stuff earlier. And here's another even side story here, is last year, this guy named Michael Williams creates this profile on Facebook, and he friends me. We had these mutual friends right here. And so maybe one of them know who it is. And then, so he's my friend for a while. We're pretending to be my friend. All of a sudden, somebody contacts me and goes, there's an obituary over here, and that's a fake ID. Okay, so the guy had taken this from this obituary notice. Michael Sean Williams, Michael Sean Williams, age 39, died on October 28, 2010. Okay, he was a mechanic at the oil show. Okay, October 28, 2010 was the last day of the 2010 oil show. That's when I was told that. Remember, I was told that during that week that young girl was murdered. And so this guy up here uses his name and his picture and creates this fake profile, and then sends me a Facebook request. Come to find out, the real Michael Sean Williams was died on that day. And then just earlier this year, I got a hold of his widow, Timber. She goes by Williamson or something on Facebook. And she was nice at first, and and I was trying to eliminate him. I was like, could you confirm where he was at during this week? What happened? Well, he was fixing to be arrested for probation violation, and he committed suicide. That's what she told me. And who did he work for? He worked for DNR, engine service or something like that. And I said, did they have a booth at the oil show? Yes, they had a booth. Could you confirm where he was in the evenings of the oil show? Because that's when I believe that young girl was murdered. No, we were separated at the time, And next thing I know, she is threatening me. Her friends are threatening me. There's slander, public defamation of my character. It's like all of a sudden, this friendly conversation trying to solve, the murder of this girl, and then, I sincerely believe Timber Williamson and her friends there that did that, they know something. And then this was, and I kept this anonymous, but this is from another person that wrote me and had been talking to law enforcement and says they know shit went down in your house. They know about the tunnels. Okay, they as in law enforcement. Okay, and then you're starting to freak me out because these people all have one friend in common. Michael's death was under investigation for a while. Don't share this, okay? And that's why I kept it all anonymous and everything. And it's real clear that Timber was hiding something. Based on the reactions, you can tell that she I got a feeling she knows something, and that that's why I come the attack against the crippled crime victim. That's trying to solve the murder of this young girl. And so all that was October 2010. Let's go on to November 9th. 2010, my first call for a burglary, okay? And they may have ran out the sliding glass door, okay? Here was the two police officers showed up at my house, A. Corson, Stephen Truex. That was on my first call. And here I am, a 27-year whatever company man, homeowner and compliant, possibly 1096. And the only thing I did was walk in and figure out somebody had been inside my house. And they were already trying to call me crazy. Can you imagine that? Reporting a crime at your house, a felony, and they were already setting you up. Okay, 2 months later, I made my first call for somebody in my attic. That's a burglary call. That's a felony, okay? In January 8, 2011, and a year later, on 1/28/12, is when I was shot with burglar alarms going off the attic. And now I've documented homeowners all over Midland, Odessa, Texas, and other states reporting people in the attic. Compliant is holding his gun and in the closet with a shotgun. I mean, the truth is, I was scared. I was under a home invasion. These are criminals. Interestingly, here was the police officers there: A. Corson, Michael Chandler, Bradley Alexander. And that Michael Chandler was the husband of secret police April Chandler, okay? She's a main player. She remained secret for 6 years. The Empire Private Investigations identified her in 2018, and she was caught on camera in my house in 2012. And so here we go. Call unfounded, 1096. So the slander was absolutely there, and this is a year before I'm ambushed and shot. And I made a point of this XREF comment, which come in an hour after I'm shot. And I believe that was done. I got a video on that called 22 Seconds. I believe it was done by MPD Officer Matt Davis. And he went and made 3 different XREF comments on 3 different reports in 22 seconds, as if it was planned in advance. And I suspected that it might have been the document trail that I had been told about in December by the ex-wife. The ex-wife had said, we're creating a document trail on you. Okay. And most of these are addresses of homes in Midland, Odessa. People have reported somebody in the attic, and that's not all of them. And a lot of these, I have a recording off the police scanner. As I told you a while ago, I recently requested from the records department a list of all homeowners reported somebody in the attic, and they told me there were 0, including me, And I reported people in the attic. I showed you the police report. I got a police report. And, there's a major cover-up going, and these are felonies. And it's not only they're breaking in your home, stealing from you, and filming your kids naked, they're also taking guns and shooting you while you ain't looking, okay? And so here's the addresses there. I just want to show you that. And like I said, I have videos out there on my YouTube channel showing them calls. This is later in the year, December 20th, 2011. And it was this night the ex-wife had called the police here, and that's when she told me that they're creating a document trail on me. The other thing she said is, Danny said, we'll just take your house, and these police officers, Blake Bush, Trent Sellers, they took me, handcuffed me, took me outside, put me in the back of their car, had a bag of pot laying in the seat, okay, and then told me we better not be called here again for this stuff. Can you imagine that? On my home, and what was this stuff? Is this home is rigged for human trafficking, and and it's suspected of multiple murders. And, and here's the slander again, male half extremely 1096, and these officers right here should be questioned about what they know about the underground facility and these multiple murders. And so once again, there's that ex-ref comment that Matt Davis made in 22 seconds on 3 different police reports, and that was one of them. Okay, let's get down to the meat of the address. These are screenshots from the security camera. Okay, the first police officer shows up. You can see it right there. I'm going to zoom in there, first police car. Okay, and then there's time stamped on it, and the time stamp on it is 11:01. Okay, second police car shows up, and that one looks like a white Crown Vic. Okay, and it's just a few seconds later, it was following the first police car. I had called out at 10:42, and so 19 minutes later, the first two. And as I said a while ago, 6 years after that, we figure out that the first one that showed up was a Martin County sheriff, now a convicted felon, that nobody's ever explained. I crawled out on my hands and knees after being ambushed and shot with my phone lines cut. And then a sheriff from another county shows up at my house. His name is not on the police report, and nobody's explained that. But, and then the other thing what we're going to get a little bit more into in a minute was the 5 police officers, Davis, Dickey, Chatwell, Angel, and Hale, were at or in my home, but they were not seen arriving because these cameras watched the front of my house. And so the cameras watching my house from 11:01 to 11:22 when it was disabled, and that was when they were at or in my home, and they wasn't seen arriving. That told me they were under my home, and it was somebody under my home that shot me. Okay. This one here is screenshots of security camera, and it shows this camera was watching my yard, my west yard, at 11:22, and then a few seconds later, 11:22, it was now watching the wall. They had rotated the camera to point at the wall to disable it, and that gave them access in and out of my home without being monitored or anybody seeing them. Okay. But remember, them 5 police officers were here, and this is the police report. This police report was withheld for 7 years. It was withheld in April 2012 and then subpoenaed in 2013. It was withheld again in violation of the subpoena. Okay. And I just got it this year, 7 years later. And when I go through it, through the timestamps, I find all kinds of stuff. Naylor's name's not there. Chad Simpson's name, 2 of the secret police who are now dead, their names are not on this, and then, but some of the big things here is I'm showing right here at 11:01 when Woodward and Naylor arrive. Okay. And after that is when Matt Davis is on scene. Tony Dickey says no one's in the house. Lots of things like booby traps, but there's no booby traps in evidence. There was no booby traps here. That was another lie, and you can't imagine what it is with a group of dirty cops, And then we're going to go here again, on scene, Greg Chatwell, Angel, and Hale. Okay, so 5 of them are listed on scene before my security cameras outside were disabled and they wasn't seen arriving. Okay, time stamped per the police report. Okay, so there obviously there was one more here. Let's see if I can find it right here. Ramirez. Okay, a maybe right there. His name is Joe Ramirez. And he was dispatched as a backer at 11:04, but he never shows up on scene. So I'd never call his name out, but he does go clear down here on the bottom as if he was here. Okay, so it's probably 6 of these police officers. The other one you see here, April Chandler, okay, and it shows her on scene at 11:17. She's the one I spoke about a minute ago, and that was, but that was actually, here's her changed location, was to the hospital. And the thing is she's documented being at the hospital writing a detention form out at 11:03. Once again, it's just proof that of the lies of this falsified police report. Okay, and here's a big one right here. Okay, the size of pellets removed from my foot were 2.5 sizes different than with my gun. Okay, and so that is just a hard fact. Okay, that's ballistic evidence proving I wasn't shot with my gun. Okay, here's the lab report, 0.3. I go up here on the chart. Okay, here's my 7.5. That's a standard shotgun shell too, by the way. If you're out bird hunting, that's what you'd probably buy. And so it's really almost an unusual size pellet that was in my foot. And I believe now we'll find out it come from a Glazer safety slug. But what we know, what that is saying, a guy's laying on the ground with a bullet hole in him from a 45, and the guy with the 22 didn't shoot him. Okay, and so if the guy standing there with a 45, then he probably goes to prison. But since he had a 22, he don't go to prison. That's the same thing here. This is absolute 100% fact that I wasn't shot with my gun. Period. Okay. The other thing here, okay, the surgeon states there's a large amount of plastic and lead pellet debris. Okay, plastic. You would never find that in that standard shotgun shell. Okay, and so you go, well, there's a plastic wadding. Well, the plastic wadding was supposedly removed at the ER, and come to find out, the ER doctor was my brother-in-law that I didn't know about. Remember, the ex-wife had told me before the murder attempt, the secret is a group of doctors are killing people for profit, but she didn't tell me brother-in-law was a doctor, and he happened to be my doctor, and I'm shot. But either way, he states he removed the plastic wadding. But this doctor says there's a large amount of plastic in the wound. Here's why I believe, here's what answers that question right there, is I was shot with a plastic tipped, pellet-filled bullet, and the size of shot matches, okay? And then it can be fired from a handgun, which matches the space limitations in that little bitty room I shot in. That was the other problem. There wasn't enough room to be shot with a shotgun, And then if you remember, Rodriguez come out with the tie wire lie. Oh, he had the shotgun tie wired, but there was no tie wire in evidence. There's no pictures of tie wire. Out of the dozen police officers, nobody says anything about a tie wire, including the CSI Marty Barrett that said he picked up my shotgun. Rosa Rodriguez made up that tie wire lie. Besides that, triple proof shows I wasn't shot with my gun. Okay, and so here's Lisa Rogers telling me you're not disabled with a 45. She didn't say a 22. She didn't say a 38. She said a 45. She knew exactly what size gun I shot with, and it sure wasn't a 12 gauge shotgun. And that fits the space limitations. You can buy a Glazier safety slug for a 45. I've wondered if Lisa's son was here, and that's how she knows that. Okay. And then we have triple proof that my x-rays were faked. And I'm not going to go over all that, but I'm going to go over just this one little part of it. The ER doctor, my brother-in-law that I didn't know about, right? He orders 3 x-rays at 11:37, okay? Secret lab tech called user in interface that we've never been able to get identified cancels the doctor's orders and reorders 2 x-rays at 11:41. Keep them timestamps in mind, okay? And so here's a user in interface, and then user in interface brings out the x-rays, and they're timestamped at 11:27. 10 minutes before they were ordered, okay? And now we know why user interface, Mr. User Interface here, canceled the doctor's orders, because he was already working on them before. And what they did was take the x-rays of somebody else, put my name on them, and then they called them mine. The other guy was missing his heel bone, so then they took me into surgery and they cut my heel bone out. I was intentionally maimed, mutilated, and dismembered to cover up this failed murder that was going to make the sister-in-law of the ER doctor rich, okay? And so there's a lot more to that story too, but I just want to hit that. This one here, just one of the many I got here. Rhonda Denman Rogers saying, I said there's an underground facility somewhere by this house. I know it's a half block away, And so I took a print. She tried to delete that, but I got a print screen of it before she did. Ricky Ronaldo, I think he's over in Pecos or somewhere. I used to live in that house years ago. I was, oh yeah. When I was a kid, there were tunnels in the house. Me and my brother would always go down there, okay? And so obviously that's where them 5 police officers were at under my house, and that's why they wasn't seen arriving, okay? And here I want to show you this one. I think this is a Google map picture. I've showed it before. There's the Home Depot store, large parking lot. In case you're having a big party, I'm suspecting they come in here, went underground. It looks like there's tunnels that are cut right here behind Home Depot, right here and right there. Can you see the ground's a different color? Looks like the tunnels are cut, okay? In the backyard of my house, it looks like there's an underground facility on the Google Map block maps, And the other thing I showed here was the Westmont courthouse had the same mortar problem I did. And so I wondered if it wasn't tunneled under. And there's a big lot here, so I wonder if one of them underground homes might be over there. And there's a water well here. And there's a water well there, too. And so I'll just show you this 50,000 foot view there. And then this, if you go, and you really ought to go here, go to maps.google.com. You do it on your phone, you do it on your computer, put in my address at 3802 Fair Circle, and you'll notice switch between the block map and the sat map. And that's what you're going to see right there. On the block map, you see that large underground facility in my backyard, and it's not there on the satellite map. You walk out there in the backyard, it's not there, but it is there in the sat map. And that's where I suspect one of the 4 underground homes I was told about is, and very possibly where that girl was murdered, and where, the Mason, Aaron Pachlhofer, was asking me if I knew the names of the 4 people who died in my house. Okay, now let's move on to motive. Okay, motive. Why? What's that $1 million question? Well, one thing, when I got out of the hospital, I figured out that I had unknowingly trapped a burglar earlier that day. Okay, and I mentioned that earlier. And one way I knew that is when I got home. This is the guest bathroom. I'm inside of it, looking down the hallway right here. My bedroom's to the right that way. And this door was torn off the hinge on the bottom, and there was pry marks on the top inside of the door. Now, I'd painted this whole home, and they wasn't there when I got shot. And then, so it was real clear to me what had happened was when I tie wired the door shut, and this is the nurse's notes, okay, right at the ER, right after I got shot, I was tie wiring my doors shut to keep them out. Remember, I come home and figured out there was somebody in my house. I got this idea to tie wire my spare door shut, and I unknowingly trapped a burglar in this room right here. And then them and their friends had a choice to turn themselves in and go to prison, but that was going to expose the tunnels, the underground facility, all the murders and all that. And so they chose to kill me. I mean, their choice to murder me. So that there's the and I think a part of that was confirmed on this April Chandler. We talked about her a while ago, and I said she was at the hospital at 11:03. Now remember, the police report doesn't show her being there. It shows her at the 7-Eleven there. That's where, once again, it tells you that the police report was falsified. And here's what I told you. Mr. Webb showed paranoia to the extent that he shot. Remember, see, I told you, she went to write shot and scribbled it out knowing that was a lie, right? And rephrased it to the extent he caused himself to suffer a gunshot wound to the ankle. Okay, and so keep that in mind. To me, what this is saying is Mr. Webb recognized he was under a home invasion, and he tie-wired his doors to try to save his life, and unknowingly trapped a burglar that committed 5,000 crimes to him. And so we had to sneak into his house and cut his phone lines and shoot him directly in an artery and listen to him scream for help. And it's all his fault. That's how I read it. Is that how you read it? And then another Facebook comment from a guy over in Lebanon named Sharon Jeter. Okay. And this was a hint that police were involved when he says, police can kill you and get away with it. Stop publicizing their business, then you go buy another home and be left alone, maybe. Okay, well, there's a couple things there, right? And one of the big thing, what is their business? Is their business arresting criminals, or is it breaking into homes and shooting homeowners? And is it human trafficking, murder? For-profit murder? What is their business that I'm publicizing? And then go buy you another home? That's what I'm talking about. If you're trying to terrorize me out of my home under the threat of death, that's a crime. You go to prison for that. And that's exactly what's going on here. They want me out of this house because of the underground facilities, because of the tunnels, and it's going to prove the killers that they are, is what it is, okay? And then he goes on, good luck finding a DA to file any charges, And then basically he's calling our DA dirty, like she would never file a charge on a cop even if they were caught on camera and a capital murdered him with absolute proof. That she is that dirty, that's what he's saying, and then this comment's real big. Bigger people than you can ever perceive. And I really believe that to be true. I was told a lot of people, the ex-wife told me so many words, a lot of people were here on the night I shot. And I got a feeling some of these were what you call important people. And, and so that might explain, the unprecedented lawlessness and public corruption. And then also keep your doors locked and tie wired shut. And that's the whole reason I put this in here, tie wired. He made a specific mention of the tie wire. And you know why? Because I think the tie wire was a deal. You know, that might be their excuse. Yeah, the reason that Mr. Webb, was involved in a premeditated capital attempted murder was because of tie wire. But if I want to tie wire my door shut in my home, I have the right to. It's my home. I worked my whole life to pay for it, right? You don't come breaking in my home. That's the problem. And here was that other suspected motive was maybe this man, Matthew Don Hyman, 33 years old, died in my hallway when he grabbed my door handle that had electricity on it. Okay. I noticed he was a landman, right? And an attorney and landman, some of my top suspects. I would believe they would be at oil show parties. Okay. And used to work for Cotton, Bledsoe, Ty, and Dawson. That's the city of Midland's law firm, is who that is. Okay, and so I'm talking to his sister-in-law, former sister-in-law, and asking her questions, trying to eliminate him, if he was here or not. And she's the one who tells me he died from a generic heart defect that no one knew he had. And, I know the electricity, 20 milliamps across the heart will stop the heart, right? I said, was he messing with electricity that day? Only 100 milliamps to stop the heart, No, he wasn't, right? And so do you remember the time of death? I'm thinking, well, if he died that morning, it wasn't him. If he died in a car wreck, it wasn't him. But no, that didn't eliminate him. Oh, it was at night. So he died at the same time I had electricity in my door, and he dies of a surprise heart failure, right? And that him and his friends could never say that they were breaking into a private home and he died in my hallway. They would go to prison for it, right? And so I'm suspecting that, and then they'd be mad and, and maybe want revenge against the, the person, that they're blaming. They're not taking any responsibility, not understanding that they're the criminals that are breaking into a private home. They're on my property. And so anyway, I got longer videos about that, but I threw that out there. And then the big obvious one here, okay, is the money, right? The ex-wife I'm married to for 3 months. And she takes my life insurance books without my knowledge right when we separate, and these books, this is a picture right out of the book. It shows that I have a basic accidental death and dismemberment and a supplemental accidental death and dismemberment that adds 2 times annual base pay and $250,000. So basically what that means is if her lifelong childhood friend that she went to grade school with, Detective Rosa Rodriguez, rules my murder an accident, she gets an extra $500,000. Extra, okay? And now remember, she was going to get nothing from a 3-month marriage that was under allegations that she was working with a prostitution ring, okay? And then here was communications with her former boyfriend, Arthur Welch. And it says, do you think that she had anything to do with the shooting? I dated her for a short while here in Lubbock, and she threatened to have me killed. He told me this. I said, well, I think she had a lot to do with the things she said, and I will so never trust him. And so, I know even recently I was talking to Arthur Welch, and he's concerned that he might be getting set up on this other deal or even framed. And I've wondered if this ain't the reason why. It's because he provided evidence in a capital attempted murder, and anybody doing that should be investigated. There should be an investigation because if that's tampering with a witness at that point. Anyway, this is Buddy Webb. The evidence is over the top. Arrest ought to be made tomorrow, actually tonight. Talk to you later. Bye.